My mom read my journal. It was filled, page after page, with how much I liked someone. A boy. She decided I was sick. Worried it would affect my grades. She sent me to a conversion therapy center. And when I got out, she beat me up right at the school gate. The guy I was with at the time tried to step in, but then he heard my mom say, "Chase, you still dare to like him? Can't you just study instead of seducing men? Do you have any idea how all our relatives are laughing at me because of you?" She never cared about my future, only her own reputation. So after that, I did what my mom said. I stopped talking to any male classmates and just focused on my studies, until I became valedictorian. At my graduation party, while my mom was soaking up the envy and congratulations from all our relatives, I secretly slit an artery. Today was my 85th day at the center. My parents were waiting at the gate first thing in the morning. They were there to take me home for the holidays. Stepping outside, I clutched my luggage and looked at my mom, terrified. Seeing me shrink back, she frowned. "Come on, do I have to drag you?" She knew I'd been disobedient inside, so she wasn't in a good mood. My dad reached for my suitcase, but before he could touch me, I screamed and recoiled. "What is wrong with you? Don't you want to go home?" My mom snapped. "No, I wanted to go home. Give the luggage to your dad and get in the car." In the car, I was silent, trying to curl into a ball. My mom complained at first, but then just ignored me. It wasn't until we stopped in front of our house that she shoved me. When her hand touched me, I flinched away in panic, my head hitting the car window hard. I didn't even feel it. I just couldn't stop shaking. My mom froze. I could see her face clouding over, and my heart jumped into my throat. "Please don't send me back," I prayed silently. Thankfully, she just glanced at me and said, "Get out." I followed them into the home I hadn't seen in so long. The unfamiliar setting made me anxious. I had lived here for 16 years, but now it felt terrifying. New Year's Eve dinner was a feast. Looking at the table full of meat and fish made my stomach turn. My dad put a piece of braised pork belly in my bowl. It used to be my favorite. The sight of the greasy pork made me sick. The memory of them forcing oil down my throat at the center was still vivid. I kept my eyes down, trying not to look at it, fighting the nausea. Seeing me hesitate, my mother spoke. "Eat up. Isn't this your favorite? Eat up. Eat. Hurry up and eat. If you don't, we'll beat you to death." I grabbed my chopsticks and shoved the pork into my mouth, as frantic as a starving ghost. The grease exploded in my mouth. I couldn't hold it down. I spat it out. I was hunched over the toilet, vomiting my guts out. My mom stood in the bathroom doorway, annoyed. "Did a little time in there make you this fragile?" I'm sorry. I know I was wrong." I scrambled over and hugged her legs, apologizing over and over. My mom frowned and violently shook me off. "Chase, are you having an episode? Can't you just be normal for once?" Somehow, all our relatives had found out I liked boys. They tagged my mom in the family group chat of hundreds of people, asking if it was true. When they saw her, they'd ask, "How could your son like men?" Relatives who were never on good terms with us would say passive-aggressively, "Some parents just don't know how to raise their kids, raising a freak like that." She felt like she'd lost face. And now she couldn't even look at me without being disgusted. "No, I'm not having an episode. I'm better, Mom. I'm really better." When did my protests change from "I'm not sick" to "I'm not having an episode"? "Get back here and eat. If you pull any more of this crap, I'm sending you back tomorrow. You can come home when you're normal again." With that, she turned and went back to the dining room. My limbs felt weak. Only one thought filled my mind. I can't go back. I can't go back there. I'll die. I grabbed the doorframe to pull myself up. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, pale, with sunken eyes, like a ghost. I took several deep breaths, forcing myself to calm down. I really couldn't be sent back to that place. Even if I had to fake it, I had to make my parents believe I was cured. In past years, my parents would take me back to our hometown for the holidays to visit relatives. This year, they had no such plans. Going back now would just give the relatives who disliked my mom a chance to gossip behind her back. In this day and age, having a perverted son who likes men was something to be ashamed of. She probably wished she never had me, right? The atmosphere at home was suffocating. Mom only appeared at mealtimes. Otherwise, she stayed in her bedroom, avoiding me as much as possible. Even a glance at me seemed to dirty her eyes. But what did I do wrong? That evening, my dad knocked on my door. I didn't want to open it, but not opening it meant getting hit. I carefully pulled the door open, picking at my fingers as I looked at my dad. I forced a smile. Dad, is something wrong? You just got back. I wanted to see how you were doing. My dad put his arm around my shoulder and guided me into the room. I don't want to be around men. It's disgusting. I don't want to be touched by a man. I bit my lip to keep from screaming, but my body was shaking uncontrollably. Big tears rolled down my cheeks. My dad froze. After a moment, he asked, "What's wrong?" I didn't dare speak, just shook my head violently. My dad did still care about me. He saw me crying and thought I was just homesick after being away for so long. He raised his hand to wipe away my tears, and I stumbled back. "Don't touch me. Don't touch me." I couldn't control my fear anymore. I curled into a ball in the corner of the room. My reaction stunned my dad and brought my mom running. A slap from my mom finally quieted me down. My dad looked at me with concern. My mom's face was a mask of cold indifference. "I'm sore. That's enough, Chase." My mom cut me off sharply. "Don't think I'll go soft on you just because you're putting on a show. One more outburst and you're going back." The slam of the door brought me back to reality. I was alone in the room. I stared at the closed door, my vision blurring with tears. Mom wasn't like this before. She used to love me. Why does she hate me so much now? It's like she wishes I'd just stay in that place forever and never come out. Why? Just because I like boys? I'm a freak. I'm sick. I started slapping my own face, chanting to myself, "Don't make Mom mad. I'm better now. I'm better now." I saw myself in the full-length mirror. I looked like a lunatic. I couldn't go on like this. Sooner or later, she'd find out and she'd send me back. "Chase, you're not a freak. You're a normal person. At least I have to make other people think I am. It's just an act. I'm already a pro at this, right? I can be whatever my parents want me to be." After that, Dad didn't come to see me again. I don't know if he was scared off by what happened that night or if Mom told him not to. I didn't want him to come anyway. The three of us only saw each other at the dinner table. And only then could we maintain that brief, fake harmony. My mom seemed satisfied with my behavior lately. She hadn't mentioned sending me back again. Just as I was starting to relax, she made an announcement at dinner that made my heart pound. "Pack your things. You're going back to school tomorrow to register." My hand froze. My breathing grew ragged. "Back to school? I don't want to go." "Mom, I don't want to go to school." My voice was quiet, but the dining room was so silent that she heard me clearly. She put down her chopsticks. "If you don't want to go to school, where do you want to go? To find Leo? Or spend a few more months at the center?" The center, the words were like a tumor in my brain. If I didn't think about it, I could barely survive. The moment I did, I felt like I could die at any second. "No," I said, my head bowed, not daring to argue anymore. "I won't look for Leo again. Mom, I'm really better. I won't like boys anymore." My mom knew exactly what to say to make me obey. She would never know what I went through in there. All she knew was that sending me there would make me normal and obedient, so now it was her go-to threat. In the end, I went back to school. She wouldn't let me live on campus anymore and told me to come straight home after class. I agreed to everything. I looked anxiously at the once familiar surroundings. I had to stand in the hallway for a long time, psyching myself up, before I dared to push open the classroom door. The moment I walked in, the room fell silent. Everyone stared at me with a strange look. Maybe their gazes meant nothing, but I felt like they were all scrutinizing me, judging me and mocking me. I pressed my lips together and walked to my seat with my head down. I'd been gone for so long that the seating chart had changed several times. My old seat wasn't mine anymore. I stood lost in the aisle. Sitting in the wrong seat would get you beaten badly. "Chase, you're back." A familiar voice sounded behind me, and the speaker slung an arm around my shoulder. I was terrified. I couldn't stop shaking. My lips trembled for a few moments before I managed to steady myself. "Yeah, I'm back. Don't be scared. He's my best friend. He won't hurt me." Being back in class, I felt out of place for a while. I even forgot to take notes and couldn't concentrate at all. I was just waiting in agony for the bell to ring. "Where have you been all this time?" my deskmate and best friend, Sam, asked me. I stiffly moved my shoulder out from under his arm. After struggling for a moment, I managed to force a smile. I was sick, was in the hospital for a while. Sam seemed to notice something was off, but he chalked it up to me being newly recovered and finding it hard to readjust to school. He didn't think much of it. I tried my best to act normal. It took 2 weeks for me to gradually let my guard down and get back into the rhythm of class. Aside from my aversion to being touched by guys, I seemed completely normal. But it was precisely that aversion that made others realize I wasn't. I used to be lively and outgoing, easygoing with my friends. But now it was different. I'd have a stress reaction if a guy accidentally touched me. I was terrified of physical contact with the same sex. Male classmates, male teachers, they all scared me. The memories were too deep. I couldn't forget them. I'm not normal at all, Sam. Holding a carton of milk and a pastry, I carefully walked over to him. He was laughing with his friends. When he saw me, he looked at me with a complicated expression. Under his gaze, I grew more and more anxious, wanting to turn and run. But I couldn't because I was here to apologize. Sam finally relented. What is it? I'm sorry about yesterday. I didn't mean it. Sam's cheek was still swollen. I did that. Yesterday, he had suddenly grabbed my shoulder from behind, and I reflexively swung the English-Chinese dictionary from my desk at his face. I was muttering nonsensical things. The class was dead silent. Everyone looked at me like I was a madman. I ignored Sam's shocked expression and fled. Sam didn't take the things I offered him. He just asked with some concern, "What kind of sickness did you have? Are you all better now?" I didn't know why he was suddenly asking, but my first reaction was to nod and repeatedly assure him I was fine. I'm better. I'm really all better." The look Sam gave me grew even stranger. I knew that in his eyes, I was probably like a mental patient insisting they're sane. In the end, Sam forgave me, but I could feel him starting to distance himself. It's okay. A little distance is better. It wasn't just Sam. My old friends and classmates all tacitly kept their distance. When they saw me, they would instinctively move away. I got into fights with people more than once. My mom was called to the school. My homeroom teacher said that if it happened again, she'd have no choice but to send me home. My mom yelled at me the whole way. I didn't really hear what she was saying. I just followed behind her with my head down. I thought I'd never be able to hold my head up again. The people inside told me that if you keep your head down, no one can see what you're really thinking. After writing an apology and promising over and over not to cause any more trouble, my mom sent me back to school. This time, no one sat next to me, and no one clapped me on the shoulder to welcome me back. Everyone kept their distance. They whispered behind my back that I had some kind of mental problem, guessing that the time I was away from school was spent in a psychiatric hospital. I didn't care about any of that. No one paying attention to me was actually better. After a while at school, I felt my emotions stabilizing. Besides the non-stop nightmares that drove me crazy, I was pretty normal the rest of the time. I thought I could just tough it out through high school like this, until the state competition when I heard that name again. As usual, I was walking to class with my head down. As I passed the track, I heard people whispering. They were speaking quietly, but I still caught the name. Leo. I hadn't seen Leo since the day I went in. We didn't even go to the same school. I was always the one orbiting him, so it was expected that I wouldn't see him. I could barely remember what he looked like. I didn't dare to. Every monstrous, terrifying face in my nightmares was his. They would torture me while screaming his name. Electroshock, forcing me to drink urine, feeding me random pills. Now, just hearing the name filled me with extreme terror. I suddenly crumpled to my knees on the track, vomiting and convulsing. This scared the people walking past me. A timid girl started crying. Somebody save me. I collapsed onto the dusty concrete, pathetically reaching out to grab someone who could save me, but everyone recoiled. It was like that heavy gate had closed again. No one was coming to save me. I had a very long dream. In the dream, I was still the smart, popular, smiling, clean Chase. There was nothing wrong with my sexuality. My mom still loved me. I woke up in the hospital. A young nurse's voice pulled me back to reality. I looked up at her blankly. What did you say? I said your 4 is done. You're fine. You can be discharged soon. My dad came to pick me up. He said I fainted from malnutrition and that I should thank my classmates for getting me to the hospital. But I clearly remembered having a panic attack on the track. Could it be that hearing Leo's name was a hallucination? And my shameful display on the track was just a dream? Maybe even liking Leo, being gay, and the conversion center were all a dream. The more I thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Thank God it was just a dream. If I hadn't seen Leo at our school gate, representing Northwood Academy for the competition, I really would have believed it was all just a nightmare. But reality is reality. There's no escaping it. The nightmare will eventually end. I saw him first, so I deliberately kept my head buried low as I entered the school. If I couldn't see him, I wouldn't be scared. Close your eyes and you won't feel the fear. Chase? Hearing someone call my name, I bolted. I didn't stop until I reached what I thought was a safe place. My legs were shaking, and I stumbled to my knees. My heart was pounding so fast it felt like it would burst out of my chest. Leo's voice was the same as before, but it sounded different to my ears. I no longer felt butterflies when he said my name, only terror. When my mom arrived, I was huddled in a corner chair at the police station, trembling. Seeing her, I grabbed the corner of her shirt like it was my last lifeline. The only response I got was a loud slap across the face. The blow made my ears ring. The police officers around her held her back, telling her to calm down, that even if a child makes a mistake, you can't resort to violence. She shot me a glare, then turned to talk to the police and get the details. No one was paying attention to me anymore. I sat there stunned, holding my face, as my thoughts slowly came back. I think I just beat up Leo. I had already run away. Why did he have to chase me? Why did he have to grab my shoulder to touch my neck? Looking down at the blood on the back of my hand, I couldn't tell if it was his or mine. I'd hurt him badly. I couldn't normally win a fight against him, but he never expected me to attack, so he was completely defenseless. He had never laid a hand on me. Leo was a top student at Northwood, but he was also a good fighter. If we really fought, I wouldn't have stood a chance. By the time his friends pulled me off, Leo was unconscious. I had been vicious. That's how they beat me inside. I don't know when I learned it, but how could I hit him? He's Leo. The Leo the first wrote about in my journal. The Leo who would pull me behind him when I was being bullied. The Leo the first loved but never dared to confess to. The Leo who tortured me to the brink of death in the center. Leo's parents arrived later. As soon as his mother saw me, she started beating me with her handbag. The young officer couldn't stop her. A metal charm on the bag cut a long gash on my face, but I just stared blankly at my scraped hand. The air was filled with crying and cursing. My right hand was shaking uncontrollably. Did I kill him? Is he dead? I asked. I asked it so calmly, so casually, that Leo's mother stopped crying. She looked at me in disbelief, then started screaming at me again. She called me vicious, said I was hoping her son would die. She called me sick. She cursed me to a terrible death. And my mom just stood to the side with a cold expression the entire time. Think she probably wished I would just die too. As long as he's not dead, that's all that matters. After the police repeatedly calmed her down, Leo's mother finally quieted. She said she didn't want compensation. She wanted to press charges. It's okay. I deserve it. But when Leo woke up, he chose to settle. Not only did his family not understand, I didn't either. I beat him up that badly. Why would he settle? My parents forced me to go to the hospital to apologize. Leo's mom stopped us at the door to his room. I told them we shouldn't have come. Who would dare let me near Leo again? Mom, let them in. Leo's voice came from inside the room. His mom was reluctant, but she finally let us in. Leo's head was wrapped up like a dumpling. His handsome face was swollen like a steamed bun, and his visible eye was bruised. I kept my head down, afraid to meet his gaze, feeling scared and guilty. My mom pinched me hard. I dug my nails into my palm, my lips trembling so badly I could barely get the words out. I'm sorry. The apology, which sounded completely devoid of remorse, was clearly not enough for Leo's mother. Just as she was about to say something, Leo gently tugged on her sleeve. She sighed and turned her face away from me, out of sight, out of mind. Leo pointed at the gift basket I was holding. Is that for me? I nodded eagerly and stumbled forward to hand it to him. But then I glanced at his injuries and silently pulled it back. Leo accepted my apology. As we were leaving, he said, "The SATs are coming up. Good luck." He chose to settle because of the college entrance exams. He didn't want this to keep me from taking them. What an idiot. He gets beaten to a pulp and he's still worried about someone else's exams. If he knew how I felt about him, he'd probably be praying I get a longer sentence, right? After leaving his room, I rushed to the bathroom and threw up violently. My fingers turned white as I gripped the edge of the sink, just trying to stay upright. People walking by gave me wary looks. Turns out Leo isn't like he is in my nightmares. He's kind, not scary at all. This whole thing blew up. The school administration called my parents in. My homeroom teacher chewed me out in her office, blaming me not only for my falling grades but also for constantly causing her trouble. Thanks to my parents' pleading, and because the entrance exams were close, the school decided to be lenient. They put a demerit on my record but let me stay in school, requiring me to write a 1,000-word apology and read it in front of the whole school at the Monday assembly, promising I'd never do it again. I would have rather packed my things and gone home than read an apology in front of all those people, but my mom's hateful glare forced me to comply. I have to study for the SATs. I have to do well, he said. Good luck. I became infamous at school. Anyone who saw me would whisper about me, openly and secretly saying I had anger issues. The kids in my class automatically ignored my existence. No one talked to me and no one dared to bother me. I moved my desk to the farthest corner of the classroom and forced myself to focus every day, to catch up on all the work I'd missed. I'd become slow. I had to go over a concept several times before I understood it, whereas before I'd get it after 1 or 2 tries. To make my mom happy, I had to bring my grades up, better than before. No one came near me, and I didn't have any more episodes. I gradually got back into the old rhythm of studying. My efficiency improved a lot, which made me happy. Everything seemed to be returning to its former calm. My mom stopped scowling at me all the time and would even occasionally reward me with a smile when I did well on a test. My classmates gradually forgot about me. I felt like I could come back to life. Until after school today. My mom saw me talking to Leo, who had just gotten out of the hospital. In front of everyone, she slapped me several times, screaming that I was shameless, that I'd never change. Leo was stunned by the scene, but when my mom started pushing me and pulling my hair, he instinctively tried to stop her. My mom's slaps landed on my face as she screamed the ugliest words. Chase, are you that pathetic? You still dare to be with him, you still dare to like him, don't you? You're not better at all, are you? You dare lie to me that you're cured. I'm sending you back right now. The beating left me dizzy, but I just looked at Leo in terror. He's a smart guy. He caught the main point of my mom's words. He looked at me in disbelief, his expression shifting from surprise to alarm, and finally to horror. The hand he had been reaching out froze in midair. It's over. In that moment, I felt like my world had truly ended. Leo knew I liked him. He's gonna think I'm a freak, too. I don't know why my mom had to do this to me. From that day on, my hatred for her reached its peak. My mom dragged me home. She smashed a ceramic bowl and made me kneel on the shards for 3 hours. In the end, it was my dad who took me to the hospital. The shards were embedded in my flesh. As the doctor was removing them, he specifically told me to hold still. I just stared silently at my bloody knees, not saying a word. What was this pain compared to what I'd been through? I'd endured every kind of pain in that place. At the doctor's insistence, my dad had me admitted. He and my mom had been arguing all the way from the hospital. My mom was screaming like a shrew, irrational, cursing at everyone. The scratches from her nails on my face stung. My knees started to ache, but none of it compared to the pain in my heart. I didn't dare close my eyes. Every time I did, I saw Leo's incredulous expression. He must regret not letting his mom press charges against this disgusting freak. You're so disgusting. Liking me? You're not worthy. The lights in the hospital room suddenly went out. They were here again to take me for treatment. This time, I didn't even have the will to struggle. If I resisted, the electroshock would just last longer. I had already learned to obey. Why aren't they shocking my brain this time? Why my heart? They started pulling out my fingernails. It hurt so much. I wanted to scream for help, but I couldn't make a sound. Right, they'd stuffed a towel stained with toilet water in my mouth. Freak, why don't you just die? Why don't I just die, right? Why don't I? Oh, because in there, you don't even have the right to die, and because I was still hoping someone would save me. We got it, heart rate normal, breathing normal. So noisy. I opened my eyes and saw a group of people in white coats and masks surrounding me. I couldn't help but scream in terror, scrambling behind the curtain. They're trying to kill me. The window was open. If I jumped now, would I be free? No, this is the second floor. If I don't die, just end up disabled, it would be even more painful. Besides, I still have things I need to do. The doctor, who had taken off his mask, crouched in front of me, comforting me in a soft voice. My mom stood behind them, the disgust in her eyes impossible to hide. I looked at her, and suddenly, I felt a sense of release. All her life, all she's ever cared about was her reputation. What was I still hoping for? The doctor said my heart had stopped in my sleep. Luckily, a nurse came to check on me, or it would have been dangerous. But I couldn't help thinking, why couldn't the nurse have come? A little later, what happened to your nails? My mom asked from her chair, her voice completely cold. The nails on my index and middle fingers had been bitten off. They'd been treated now. I just shook my head and said nothing. Chase, don't forget what you promised me when you got out. The indifference in her eyes made my breath catch. The morning I got out, my mom called the center to talk to me. It was only because I promised to listen to her, study hard, stay away from guys, and get into a good college that she came to pick me up. I haven't forgotten. I really didn't know he'd be there today. I didn't say anything to him. I wasn't shamelessly clinging to him. You'd better not be. From now on, I'm picking you up after school. With that, she got up and left the room. I was alone. I lifted my bandaged hand and squeezed the two fingers hard. Blood soaked through the gauze. The sharp pain, connecting my fingers to my heart, brought me back to my senses. I looked at the two small birds cuddling on a branch outside the window. I was so envious. I was the only one who was lonely and pitiful. My knees hadn't fully healed before my mom forced me back to school. There were a lot of people at the school gate that day. They had all witnessed my mom slapping me in public. They all heard that I liked men. The looks they gave me were full of disgust. I became the school pariah. People I knew, people I didn't, all avoided me when they saw me. Even my best friend, Sam, looked at me with a hint of disgust. I was gay, and we used to be so close, always next to each other. He probably thought I had those filthy thoughts about him, too. I walked into the classroom, and cold water was poured over my head. My desk was filled with trash. My textbooks were covered in curses. Gays are disgusting and just die already. Evil D. Don't rush me. Thankfully, the teachers didn't kick me out because of this. I could still attend classes. Senior year was only a few months. I just had to grit my teeth and get through it. It would be over soon. As long as I get into the college my mom wants, I can get away from her. I started sleeping only 4 hours a night. Besides eating and using the bathroom, I spent all my time studying. There was still trash in my desk, and my books would still disappear, but these little things couldn't affect me. My mind was filled with only studying and good grades, until they locked me in the bathroom to keep me from going to class. That's when I truly snapped. I kicked the bathroom door down and went back to class as if nothing had happened. After school that day, I snuck away from my mom and climbed over the wall. Looking at the guy pinned under me, his face a mess of blood and tears, I felt great. So this is what catharsis feels like. Next time, don't lock me in the bathroom again. You're interrupting my studies. I'll get really angry, I said softly with a smile. He looked at me like I was a psycho, nodding and promising through his tears. Let him go. He turned around and called the cops. But there weren't any security cameras here. The only witness had pissed his pants in fear. He was my witness. He said it happened at a time when I was still at school, walking out the main gate. The security guard could testify to that. Besides, I didn't lay a hand on him. Why would the police arrest me? I was number 1 in the school again. I received praise. The school didn't seem to care about the rumors about me. It made sense. With my grades, I could be the state valedictorian. Between a gay kid and a state valedictorian, they cared more about the latter. At the state physics competition, I saw Leo. His partner was a delicate-looking guy, a sophomore, nervous about his first competition. He kept following Leo around, calling him upperclassman, which was hard for me to hear. He obviously saw me too. Our eyes met for a second before he quickly looked away, turning to explain the competition rules to the guy next to him. Chase? My partner touched my arm. My fist stopped an inch from his face. He stared at me blankly, fear creeping into his eyes. I pulled my hand back and looked down. Sorry, let's go in. My partner was so scared he was useless for the rest of the competition. That weakling next to Leo also had a terrible mindset. He panicked after one wrong answer. Teams were eliminated one by one, until it was just me and Leo in the final showdown. He was really good, but his reaction time was a little slower than mine. Was fast at buzzing in. That's something I learned inside. If you're slow, you get beaten so bad your own mother wouldn't recognize you. After the competition, I saw Leo comforting his partner. He patted his head and said, "It's okay. Just do better next time." So he's like that with everyone. Next time? I'm afraid there won't be a next time. Leo looked up at me, an emotion I couldn't read in his eyes. It looked like pity, like disgust. I suppressed the rage inside me and got on the bus back to school. The hatred in my heart was devouring the last shred of my sanity. He pitied me. If he became just like me, would he still have that look on his face? I secretly started plotting something. If I did it, Leo would hate me for the rest of his life. But my life is already such a mess. A little more mess won't make a difference. My grades were top of the class, and I won first place in the competition. My mom's attitude toward me had improved a lot recently. She even let me come home by myself once or twice, but I knew she'd paid the neighbor's kid to spy on me. The price for spying on me was getting beaten up in an alley. Of course, I wasn't the one who did it. I'm a good student. Why would I do something like that? When I ran into Leo in a back alley, the hatred in my heart roared to the surface. I really hated him. I hated that he wasn't like me, and I hated that he had to show up in front of me. He got straight to the point. "The thing with Ryan, was that you? Ryan?" I thought hard. For a moment but couldn't place the name. Leo opened his phone's photo gallery and shoved the picture in my face. The person in the photo had their head shaved and a long cut on their face. He looked nothing like he did last time. I pushed his phone away, furious. He came all this way to find me for some weakling? I don't even know him. You're sticking up for him, but you got the wrong guy, didn't you? I should have cut out Ryan's tongue too. Then he couldn't have snitched. Chase, the way you looked at him that day was terrifying. So that's why he suspected me. So? That means I did it? I gave him a smile that didn't reach my eyes. He looked just like he did in my nightmares, just like the people I saw at the center. If you have evidence, go to the police. If not, get lost. How could you? Leo started to say something but stopped. I knew what he wanted to say. How could you become like this? I wanted to know the answer to that too. But even I didn't have one. The secret to not being bullied is to bully others. To find a sliver of peace in that hellhole, you have to eliminate all threats. If you're done, I'm going home. Forget it. When it comes to Leo, I'll keep a little bit of my humanity. I don't want to hurt him, and I don't want him to know how terrifying I can be. Who told me to like him so much? Chase, I don't want you to go down the wrong path. Thanks for your concern. I waved my hand and walked around him, leaving the alley. If I got back any later, my mom would get suspicious. I'm not on the wrong path. I was born wrong. From the day I started liking Leo, my path was already hopelessly wrong. I became as lively and cheerful as I used to be. My grades and my behavior made my mom very happy. Now, she only gets mad when someone asks if I really like men. Otherwise, she's been pretty good to me. I was my mom's good son again. She started socializing with those relatives again. Because my grades were better than all of their kids, my mom was able to get back some of the face she'd lost. I don't like it when those relatives come over, because they're really nosy. Chase, what's the difference between liking a man and liking a woman? My uncle suddenly asked at the dinner table. The hand holding my chopsticks trembled. Horrifying images flashed through my mind again. My mom's expression shifted slightly. Before she could speak, I said, I was young and didn't know any better. I thought being good friends with a guy meant I liked him. I've corrected that mistaken idea now, so I can't answer your question, Uncle. The best way to find out is to try it yourself. You're free after all. No one's holding you back. I said it calmly, my tone not too aggressive, as if I were seriously answering his question. But my uncle's face turned shades of red and white. He was getting old and still wasn't married. Everyone in the village said he couldn't perform. It was a sore spot for him. My mom put a piece of meat in my bowl. I forced it down, fighting the nausea. By the way, have Chloe's mock exam scores come back yet? What did she get? Can she get into a top-tier university? She can ask me if there's anything she doesn't understand. I looked at my aunt's daughter. She was on the phone with a friend at my house earlier today, talking about me. She was so concerned about me, I should return the favor. To get her into a good college, my uncle and aunt had spent a fortune to get her into a top high school. But a loser is a loser. No amount of money can change that. Chloe looked furious. Her grades were bad, and her parents were always yelling at her about it, which was a huge embarrassment for her. So what if you have good grades? You disgusting gay, you sick freak. She yelled, throwing down her chopsticks. So rude. Chloe had always been overshadowed by me growing up, and she bullied me a lot. But I used to have a good temper and didn't want to argue with her. Now, my temper is good in a different way. I don't let anyone who provokes me get away with it. Oh, are you mad? I'm just concerned about you. I put a piece of her favorite pork belly in her bowl, not angered by her words at all. Let's not even talk about me. Even if I were gay, colleges don't ban gay people. But if your grades are bad, you really can't get in, right? So this is the kind of talent a top high school produces. Huh? I said with a smile, looking at my aunt. Auntie, your money wasn't wasted. Her grades might not be good, but she's great at cursing people out. Wasn't a total loss. If you want to hit a sore spot, I can play that game too. Chloe had a terrible temper at home, always causing drama that made the family a laughingstock. And now she was cursing at me like this in my own house. She had no manners. They came to our house this time to borrow money. Cursing at me was a slap in my parents' faces. As expected, Chloe got scolded and had to apologize to me. The rest of the meal was awkward, but not for me. It was awkward for them, having the nerve to show up at my house. My mom didn't stop me, which meant she had also been putting up with these so-called relatives for a long time. For once, my mother and I were on the same side. After they all left, I sat in my dark room, my face twisted with rage. Gay. Disgusting. Freak. These words were like ugly scars on my body. Just when they were about to heal and fade, someone would take a dull knife and tear them open again, leaving them raw and bloody. They're so good with their words. It would be interesting if they suddenly couldn't speak. I looked at my glowing phone in the darkness, a smile stretching my face until it felt like it would break. The thought of what was going to happen to them made me happy. In the middle of the night, my dad got a call from my uncle. He woke me up and we went to the hospital together. I leaned against the wall, bored, listening to them cry and talk about what happened that night. They were robbed. Chloe was dragged away. When they found her, her mouth was full of blood. A piece of her tongue was missing. No other injuries. My phone vibrated. I opened the email, and the first thing that popped up was a gruesome photo. The man in the picture was tortured beyond recognition. His backside was severely damaged, bleeding profusely. I recognized him. He was the one who had just been asking me what it felt like to be with a man versus a woman. I don't know if he ever got to experience what it's like with a woman, but now he's experienced it with a man. Now he doesn't have to ask me anymore. My uncle was dead. He was found at home this morning after drinking pesticide. He wasn't married, so his brothers arranged the funeral. I went back to our hometown with my parents. They had me keep watch at the wake. I lit incense for my uncle and bowed. Uncle, did you find out what it feels like to be with a man? I patted his coffin and laughed. Was it good? Seeing someone enter the hall, I wiped the smile from my face and put on a sad expression. As soon as the person left, I rolled my eyes, spat on the floor, and left that disgusting place. At my uncle's burial, everyone was crying. I knew most of them weren't sincere. He never married, never made money, and was a gambling addict. Few of his siblings respected him. People are always so hypocritical. I was at the back of the procession. I looked up and saw Chloe's hateful stare. I guess she suspected me. It didn't matter. They'd never trace it back to me. And even if they did, what could they do? After coming back from our hometown, my mom was in a much better mood. Back then, my uncle had been the one who laughed at her the loudest. When she married my dad, my uncle loved to bully her. With him dead, she was definitely happy. Seeing the long-lost smile on my mom's face made me feel great. That's right, be happy. The happier you are now, the more painful it will be later. I'd been behaving perfectly at school. The people who had led the charge to exclude me were now sucking up to me, even if it made them sick. I accepted them without holding a grudge. They were just a bunch of fair-weather fools. Not worth my energy. What was annoying me was Leo. I don't know what's gotten into him lately, but he keeps ambushing me on my way home. If he keeps this up, I'm really gonna lose control and hit him. Chase, you've been acting really strange lately. He followed me as if he couldn't read the room. I raised an eyebrow, amused. How have I been strange? You weren't like this before. The person you are now feels like a stranger. Leo grabbed my wrist. My head buzzed, a pain like an electric shock. I shook off his hand, controlling my emotions so he wouldn't see anything was wrong. Don't act like you know me so well. What do you know about me? Leo and I didn't go to the same school, but they were close. We used to discuss problems, play ball, and go on bike rides to relieve stress. Back then, I thought he was as lonely as I was. In reality, I was always the only one who was lonely. I know you used to smile a lot. You weren't afraid of my touch. You looked at people with kindness. Leo's voice pulled me back from my thoughts. Was I like that before? I looked at him with a half-smile. Well, I'm not anymore. Can you get out of my way now? Chase, what happened to you? Where did you go for those 2 months? I asked everyone you were friends with, and they all said they didn't know. I froze. Leo had been looking for me during that time? I asked everyone, but nobody knew. I went to your house, but your mom kicked me out. I suddenly grabbed Leo's hand, my voice frantic. You went to my house? Seeing my strong reaction, Leo nodded, confused. You just disappeared. I was worried. Leo is telling me this now? Did he not understand what my mom was saying that day? You were worried about me? What right do you have to worry about me? Leo, who are you to me? My eyes stung, and I felt a strange sense of grievance.
I'm Leopold.
Your friend. Friend, just a friend. I let go of him, dazed. Well, thanks for that, good friend. Leo is a loyal guy. When a friend suddenly disappears, of course he'd be worried. So what was I getting so worked up about? He saw me as a brother, but I had those disgusting feelings for him. I'm so sick. Chase, if you're going through something, you can tell me. I can help you. He's always like this, offering to help before he even knows what the problem is. I really wanted to know how he could help me with this. You're sure you can help me? I pinned him against the wall with the rolled-up papers in my hand. I like you, I said word by word. How are you going to help me with that? Leo's pupils slowly dilated. His throat moved, and after a long moment, he finally asked, Are you serious? He was so scared his voice was trembling. And this guy said he could help me? No one could help me. No one could save me. Those piercing voices started up in my head again. I clutched my head and pushed away the hand Leo was extending toward me. Yes, I'm serious. Think I'm disgusting? A freak? Leo's face swam before my eyes, making me dizzy. I basically fled that day. So many people had already called me disgusting. I didn't want to hear Leo say it too. He won't show up again now, right? A month before the exams, my dad had an affair. When I found out, he asked me to keep it a secret. He said my mom's personality was so volatile that if she found out, our house would be a war zone. He didn't want it to affect me before my big exams. I smiled at my dad. He was such a good father, so considerate of me. I nodded and agreed. As soon as I opened the front door, the sound of shouting poured out like a flood. Everything that could be broken was broken. The handprint on my dad's face came into view. My mom's face was twisted with rage. Dad, Mom, what's going on? I stood by the door, clutching my backpack, afraid to move. Inside, I was ecstatic. I knew my mom had found out about Dad's affair. My dad looked at me, suspecting I was the one who snitched. I shook my head innocently. Before he could do anything, a new round of arguments began. My mom sent me to my room. I left the door open, doing my homework while listening to their shouting downstairs. With my mom's personality, this wasn't going to blow over quickly. The house was in chaos and I was comfortable. They had taken away my right to peace, so why should they get to enjoy it? A rare moment of quiet came when my mom had a problem with a work project. Her proposal was launched by a competitor first. Although she managed to salvage the situation, she was still punished. She was demoted and nearly faced a lawsuit. Coincidentally, my dad's mistress worked for that competitor. My mom wanted to sue my dad, but she was too concerned with appearances. You don't air your dirty laundry in public. In the end, she didn't take legal action. I advised her to divorce him, but she just yelled at me for trying to embarrass her. Her precious reputation was more important than anything. The arguments at home were endless. When my dad couldn't stand it anymore, he'd go to his lover's place. I was the one who handed him his bag as he left, so I managed to save a video of their passionate encounter as a file. My mom must have been a ninja in a past life. Even after all this, she wouldn't divorce my dad. If she could tolerate so much, why couldn't she have tolerated me back then? Why did she have to push me to this point? On the days of the exams, my mom and dad were lovey-dovey again. They drove me to the testing center and picked me up. To outsiders, we were the perfect, happy family. The moment that front door closed, it all vanished. This house was disgusting, rotten to the core. After the exams were over, I locked myself in my room for 2 days. The red notification dot on my phone told me the person texting me was on the verge of fury. I snuck out when my parents weren't looking, tucking the retractable knife into my pocket as I left. The exams were over. It was time to settle some scores. Warm blood splattered on my face. I looked at the face, eyes wide with fury. This was the face that had humiliated me again and again at the conversion center. My mom thought sending me there would cure me, but she had no idea the people inside were even more terrifying. They were just like me. When their desires flared up in there, the only way to satisfy them was to grab whoever was available. He was the kingpin inside. He never had to say who he wanted. Others would arrange everything for him. To this day, I can't forget how he tormented me. The ropes cutting into my skin, the swollen face from being slapped, the shame of being watched by a crowd. I dreamed of killing him. And after he got out, he had the nerve to say he liked me. If you like me, you should do what I want. Now that the job is done, he deserves to die. If you love me enough to die for me, then I have no choice but to grant your wish. I straightened my torn clothes. With a swift motion, I sliced off a certain part of his body, took a few pictures with my phone, and finally cut his artery. Blood pooled on the floor. I sat in the corner, watching him, as the fear slowly receded. He was right. The way to conquer fear is to create fear. As dawn broke, I changed into clean clothes and set the wooden cabin on fire. Luckily, the place he chose was remote enough. He said it was for atmosphere. Dying in the midst of your own fantasy, isn't that a kind of happiness? I anonymously sent the photos to a few of his lackeys from the center. They were all cowards who sucked up to whoever was strongest. A little scare would be enough to kill them. I wasn't worried about them calling the police. It would be better if I was caught soon. I have nothing left, so I have nothing to fear. But when I turned and saw Leo, I was struck by lightning. I didn't want him to see me like this. He was filthy. He must have gone through a lot to find this place. This time I didn't run. I just looked at him and smiled brightly. The Chase that Leo used to know was dead. This is the real Chase. Are you going to call the cops? I asked, tauntingly. There was still blood on my hands that I hadn't washed off. Anyone could see what I had done. Leo didn't speak. He just looked at me, his gaze finally landing on the marks on my neck. For some reason, I felt a pang of guilt and pulled my collar up to hide them. What do you want to ask? Did you two sleep together? Leo asked. I didn't expect him to hesitate for so long just to ask me that. I was in a good mood today. I could answer him. Not yesterday. Not yesterday. Didn't you want to know where I was during that time? I sat down and patted the rock next to me. Leo sat down beside me. I gave him a sanitized version of the story. After listening, Leo's eyes were bloodshot, his knuckles white from clenching his fists. I wasn't sure why, but I didn't care anymore. Leo, this is the real Chase. Would he be afraid of me? To my surprise, Leo just held me tightly and said nothing. Something wet dripped onto my neck. Why was he crying? I wasn't even crying. Leo really is a friend worth having. Don't cry, Leo. It's not worth it. It's not worth it for someone like me. I didn't tell Leo that he was the one I liked. At this point, my love was just a foul, disgusting thing. He was so good. I didn't want him to know. Chase, actually, I've always liked you. I looked at Leo. His lips were pressed into a thin line. The wind must have been playing tricks on me. I misheard him. We walked in silence. Leo kept his head down, lost in thought. The sun was finally out today. The rain and fog had lifted, and even the air felt fresh. We walked side by side on an empty road, peaceful and undisturbed. That was enough. The day the exam scores came out, I saw on the news that a fire caused by an electrical issue had broken out at an illegal facility on Blackwood Mountain. Many people had died. Looking at the last names and the poorly censored images in the report, my blood boiled. I'd recognize those people even if they were ashes. But my plan hadn't even started yet. How did they get their karma so quickly? Something was wrong. Why were all the people I wanted to kill dead? For some reason, I suddenly thought of Leo. The day we parted, he said something strange to me. No one can bully you anymore. I didn't think much of it at the time, but thinking back, it was weird. I didn't have Leo's contact info, but I remembered his number. For the first time since I got out, I called him. Chase, no one can bully you anymore. His voice came through the phone. I was almost certain it was him, but he was just a student. How could he have the means to get inside? No, you don't have to break in. You can be sent in just like I was. Leo, how did you get in? Are you insane? I roared. The wind was howling on his end of the line, but I could still hear him laugh. I just hate that I didn't go insane sooner.
Chase, I'm sorry.
You psycho. What are you sorry for? When I said I liked you that day, I was serious. I've liked you since the first time I saw you stand up for a friend, taking a beating without making a sound. But I was afraid to say it. Chase, you have no idea what kind of person I am. I was afraid you wouldn't want to be my friend if you knew. Leo's words were a jumble. I only heard 3 of them. I like you. He likes me? Things blew up. The conversion center didn't have time to relocate. After seeing the torture the people inside endured, a small segment of the public began to speak out in support of gay rights. My mom stood in front of my bedroom door, her expression complicated. I knew that even with all this, she would never admit she was wrong. Leo was among the victims they rescued. He had been tortured horribly. When they found him, he kept repeating one sentence. No one can bully you anymore. I cried all night. Leo, that big idiot. Why did he go in there? That place isn't fit for humans. I can get my own revenge. Who needed him to step in? My mom's guilt vanished the moment she found out I was the state valedictorian. She even seemed to think that if she hadn't sent me there, I wouldn't have been able to study so hard. A little suffering was worth it for such a great honor. She wasn't even mad about my dad's affair anymore. She was too busy showing off my scores to the relatives. Looking at the smile on her face, I wanted to rip it off. They couldn't hold the valedictorian party in the city, so to make sure more people knew I was the state valedictorian, my mom took me back to our hometown and invited everyone to celebrate. Those people offered her fake congratulations, saying she raised her son so well and that they'd have to learn from her experience. They praised her to the heavens. No one remembered calling me a disgusting gay. Everyone was envious that my mom had raised a state valedictorian. A motorcycle pulled up outside. A man rushed in and handed my mom a file folder. As he hurried away, he glanced up at me on the balcony. I watched my mom's smile freeze on her face. She walked over to my dad and threw the files at his head. The big screen on the stage started playing a lurid scene of 2 men in a passionate embrace. The stars were my dad and his lover. The already lively party became even more chaotic. My mom attacked my dad like a madwoman. I thought she could tolerate anything. Why couldn't she hold it together at an event like this? Satisfied, I went into my room, locked the bathroom door, and turned on the shower. As the sharp blade cut across my neck, I felt a sense of relief I had never known before. The good student, the state valedictorian, just a mentally ill person who'd been suppressed for too long in a rotten family. You can't control me this time, can you? If things went according to plan, the evidence has already been sent to the police. The patrol cars should be on their way to arrest me now. Her proudest son is a vicious murderer. She thinks being gay is disgusting and deserves death. But her husband's lover is a man. I hope my mom enjoys the show. Before I lost consciousness, I heard sirens and the sound of a door being broken down. And Leo's voice. I fell into a dream. In the dream, I had a beautiful rose. At first, everyone wanted to touch it. But after one of its petals was damaged, no one would even look at it. It withered away in a summer when no one cared,